Specialized is one of those companies that's sometimes quite difficult to love. In the UK, and I'd say probably in the States as well, they're sort of like Ford in that they're absolutely everywhere, and therefore they don't seem that special sometimes. And also, do your own research, they've not always been easy to love as a company. However, there's no questioning Specialized's racing pedigree. There are several World Tour teams racing on Specialized bikes at the moment, and the choice for the climbers is this bike, the S-Works Tarmac. Just in case you've been living under a rock for the last few years, S-Works is what Specialized calls its top range bikes. It's sort of like M Sport to BMW. I love the way this bike looks for starters. It's got these incredible organic curves that kind of flow and meld together. And to use that wonderful bike reviewer's cliche, it's incredibly beefy in places because it's got this huge bottom bracket, huge down tube, huge fork that's got a steerer tube that's 1 3/8 inch at the bottom, which is particularly large even by the standards of such things. All right, guys. It's not just the frame set either. In this spec, the bike comes with this amazing S-Works Aerobar. It's a little bit weird because you can't exactly wrap your fingers around it because it's so wide, but it looks absolutely incredible. The paint is really cool too. The orange bits are kind of glossy fluoro and they really like pop in dull light, and then it's contrasted with the matte black, and it all just comes together in a bike that people look at and they're just like, that is fucking cool. Probably can't say that. Better yet, this comes as standard with Roval, that Specialized wheel brand, carbon clinchers, which are a good kind of mid-depth. They look amazing, and they've got these sort of skin wool tyres which look just like old school tubs. Very Euro, super cool, proper race cred to those. And finally there's the S-Works cranks, which, if I'm honest, maybe don't shift quite as well as Shimano's own ones, but they look very, very nice indeed. This is the Shimano Dura-Ace version of the bike, and that means that you get a full group set, obviously, apart from those cranks, which includes really, really good brakes, the best caliper brakes on the market, and, in my opinion, the nicest shifting as well. I know some of you would probably prefer Di2, but for my money, Dura-Ace 9000 is just incredible. I've ridden a lot of really nice bikes in the last couple of years, perks of the job, and this one really stands out. I think it's in my personal top 3. It's one of those rare machines that after a ride you just want to sit down next to the road and have a little cry about how great it is. I think what impresses me so much about this is the way, on the one hand, it's got this huge, beefy, very brash American style frame, and yet on the road it's kind of dainty and has a surgical precision. Like you're always going to hit that line. You always feel like you can go exactly where you want to, and it's going to do exactly what you as a rider make it do. It probably goes without saying that this bike is phenomenally stiff. How could it not be with tube profiles like that? But it combines that with genuine smoothness. It's partly the tyres. They're almost like tubs in their ride quality. They have this wonderful, smooth, supple quality to them. And it's partly a frame that just absorbs vibration really, really well. It's definitely a race bike, so you'll be aware of what you're rolling over in a way that you wouldn't be with a pure endurance machine. But it's just perfectly judged. It has this kind of poise that makes it so, so good. I have to admit that I'm a bit of a carbon clincher skeptic, because I think for the general riding that most of us do, especially in the UK where it rains a lot, they're not always the best choice. Having said that, these Roval wheels are actually really good all-rounders, and I have ridden them in the wet and they still brake fairly well. Maybe a tiny bit grabbier than an aluminium rim, but not something that I ever found alarming. What I did have was a tiny bit of brake rub from the rear, and I think that's actually because the frame is so stiff that it's overwhelming the wheels. But it didn't really take away from the total experience. It's a very minor thing. This bike costs £5,500 in the UK, which is a hell of a lot of money to most people. But having said that, when you compare it to some halo bikes like the Venge Vias, it's actually very cheap. and you're getting a machine that is 6.5 kilos, which puts it under the minimum weight for UCI racing. This S-Works Tarmac genuinely has a world-class frame set. It is up there with the absolute best, and it's built up with a spec that is just sublime. If you want a proper race bike and you've got the cash, this one's hard to overlook.